Good morning. Here we are, another edition of On the 50 with Coach Moeller, and the train just keeps rolling down the tracks, Case. And we did the game with Jeremy and Jigs, Brian, and we were in that press box with Mark and our staff, and we're looking out over the field and talking about how good Swanton has been historically over decades. And you start talking about, I looked up the championships and the NWOAL and all the things that they did for so long, and you just kind of, Swanton's in a completely different era of football. But for you, because you were playing in those days where Dave Hansbarger and Coach Fisher had so much good culture at Swanton. When you did come back to Swanton, we had some really nice remembrances of our time there. Do you get nostalgic sometimes when you walk on that field?
Yeah, I think just the setting
Oh,
alone is
it's great, great.
one of the best in the league.
It is.
It's kind of nestled down there in the trees and by the cemetery and everything, and um, they have historically had some really good teams, and so you know that there's a lot of history there. So it's nice to go back there, and it's a grass field, which you don't get a lot of
Yeah.
today, and it's a nice surface to play on as well.
I was talking to Brian about, and your brother, who speaks rarely, few words. He's a great man, Robbie, and Rob played on the 95 team there. And we were talking about that 95 team, talking about the 94 teams and 93 teams. And I remember seeing Rob Moeller hit a 0-1 trap. And he hit that thing so fast. I have never, and we 0-1 traps are bread and butter play with Rex and you. And I just have, to this day, that struck a chord. Like, gosh, that guy hit that so quick, and our guards, and you probably remember that, because your brother and you guys are very close. But so I was remembering that, and Rob texted and said, "Well, let me tell you about the '95 Swanton team. We were right there against a team that won a league, that had an NFL play. I mean, all these guys on this team. He listed like 8 or 9 play. Swanton used to be, in his era, in my era, they were loaded for bear and always in the championship, conversation in the league.
Yeah, that those 2 years, 95, 96,
Yes.
my junior senior year, they were as physically tough as anybody in the league. Like you said, they had Nate Bowling, who went and played at Wake Forest and spent some time in the NFL. Matt Fisher was an All Ohio
Tough.
linebacker. Steve
Tough.
Bugg. And they had athletes, so they were, your typical late 80s, early 90s type of team, and they were just physical and well coached, and they were committed to the game. And I think, in today's era, you don't always have that in a lot of communities, that there's a huge commitment to the sport. We're fortunate that we have it.
Well, it was great to be back, and we were talking about the top stadiums in Northwest Ohio, and Swanton, as you said, ranks way up there. It was a cool, nostalgic trip.
Yeah.
The game, unfortunately, has not been very good for us, but I think there were some good takeaways if you're looking. And you're down there coaching, man. You got this game under control very early, but you weren't, headsets weren't off, and you guys weren't having popcorn and mellow yellow. I mean, you guys were coaching. There was some really nice performances in that game. Ty Jackson, I thought, as a senior, you've asked him to do some hard things with the injuries that you've suffered, and I just thought he played really well. He's played very well for you.
Yeah, he did a great job. He had a big interception with a nice return. Played a little bit of running back, got some carries, and got in the end zone a few times. And, he's one that is going to provide us with great special teams play and depth at the cornerback position, and that's what we're asking from him. And he's getting better every week, and his role is really vital to our success.
We were excited to see Isaiah Badenhop back. Anytime you start having head injuries and jaw injuries, and those are tough. You get into protocols, and you want your kids to be healthy, and you are a stickler at, you're not healthy, you're just not going to play. I mean, and everybody knows that. So, they getting kids healthy, keeping them healthy, I think has been a key takeaway from you and your coaches, and Amanda, she's almost like our team physician. She does such a great job. But good to see him back. And I just really feel like Caden Sonnenberg has changed, once you lost such a key player in Roars, Tyler, which is just continues, will be, unfortunately, a cloud for that senior class. I don't think that it's a negative thing for them. They're going to use it, and I think Tyler's such a great person, and he's going to come through this. But there was a little moment like, doggone it, we lost such an important player, and we were young back there to begin with. I think Caden Sonnenberg changes a lot of that.
Yeah, Caden is extremely versatile for
yeah.
us at that sniper spot because he can play kind of up on the line of scrimmage in a almost like a linebacker role, but he can also drop back and play a traditional deep safety role. And then we've got some other guys that probably more specialize in one than the other. And he can kind of do both, which in that versatility is really important for what we do schematically. He brings an aggression and just a downhill style of play there that is going to really be a benefit to us, and obviously gives us a little bit more depth at that spot, which we're going to need as we move forward. So he's big. Getting him back, and then he had some health issues early on where it was, is he going to be able to play? And I think that's made him even more hungry and focused on what he has to do.
It's strange. You're in the booth, you're far away, and you've been coaching these kids for years, and he looks big. He looks big and physical. Now, he might not be big in the sense that Garrison Crew's big, but he just brings a physical presence. His tackling, his run fits, his just attention to detail on that back end, and like you said, you can almost play him at will. He's got those kind of ability to tackle and shed and play, and he's a physical football player. He's not your standard good-looking athlete that can run. He wants to hit and play.
Yeah, he's like I said, he can do a lot of things back there, and he put in a lot of time in the off season to get bigger, stronger, a little bit faster, and I think we're now starting to see the rewards of that hard work.
Let's talk about this team had question marks coming into the season. You guys are always ahead of the curve, but the analysts and people that do magazines and TV shows, about high school football, had a lot of questions about Liberty Center. What are you going to do at quarterback? You've had a stable position room there for a number of years, and Grady had done a great job and take care of the football and getting you into what you want to get, high IQ player, and then you had Kreinbrink to come in to throw it. Was Caden Kreinbrink capable of being the guy as a senior? I think we're starting to see that he's the guy. The back end of the defense, though, I think was the bigger question. Brian Babcock had really went through the roster and saw tons of talent, but not a lot of snaps. In case you knew what you had back there, I know there was question marks. We lose Tyler Roars, but the guys have really looked like they've really evolved back. There's a lot of maturity. They're making plays. They're not getting beat deep down the field. Talk about the evolution of your defensive backfield right now.
Well, I think it's just a group that needed a lot of reps.
Yeah.
Game reps, practice reps, whatever. You can do all the 7-on-7s in the world in the summer, but I think the game reps are critical because that speed is just a little bit faster. There's more nuance to what the routes are the teams are running and things like that. But I think our guys are getting better and better. Ethan Gray, we knew he was a great athlete and what we had in him coming back, and he's done really well. We thought Tyler Roars was going to be a really big corner for us, and for a game and a half he was, and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, what's next? And then we've had guys like Isaiah Badenhop, Adam Foster, and Ty Jackson kind of step in there and give us high level of performance out of all of them. And they all bring something different to the table. They have strengths and weaknesses on their own, and you got to kind of find out, okay, what's the weakness? How can we cover that up a little bit? What's the strength? Let's play to that strength and things like that. And then our sniper position was one where we had a lot of bodies that we feel like we can play, so we have some depth there. But again, they didn't have a lot of experience. Caden probably had the most experience.
Yeah, most snaps.
Mason Smith was probably the next one with the most, and then Isaac Worth and JT Olcrew were two guys we kind of moved because Caden had a question mark at the beginning of the year and we needed some more depth, so we moved JT and Isaac there, and those guys were doing a good job. Now Isaac's a little bit banged up, so that depth is huge. Had we not done that, we'd been scrambling, finding guys, and Brady Badenhop is another one who is emerging as a guy that we like a lot, and it just needs more reps and more experience, and he's going to be really good, I think.
So you kind of went from a position with question marks, lack of snaps, and trying to figure things out in camp in July, and it looks like a position group that's pretty strong and deep. And I'm not saying it wasn't always good. Coach Thomas in the back end, coach on the field like you were when you played, and that's always been the stabilizing force of the whole thing. But I think you look at this position group, I think the questions are starting to get answered pretty rapidly for
Well,
us.
hopefully that continues. We're going to see better and better teams as the year goes
For
on,
sure.
and we have to continue to improve. I think it's kind of a work in progress there. And we also have, Tatum Murdoch,
Oh,
who
yeah.
is,
Emerging.
we like to call him Jack Tatum Murdoch.
He is definitely
He-
Jack Tatum looking.
He's a guy that we kind of had at sniper early, and then as we got more depth there, we needed depth at rover, and Thomas has kind of taken him under his wing and teaching him, the alignments and the calls and things like that. And Tatum's a very good athlete, and he likes to hit, and he's physical, and I think he's going to be really, really good there.
And he's big. I mean, he does all these things, and you see those smaller bodies can run, and they can be sudden, and they can do things. He likes to. I mean, he really is more. Not that he's not good in the pass game, but boy, he looks like he's a great downhill. Like Thomas. These guys like to be in the run game.
Yeah, like I said, he's young too, and that's what's good. I think he can add some weight and some strength, and he's going to be a force in the future for sure.
Obviously, the difference between a Thomas Moeller and some of the, a Landon Cruz, some of these really experienced guys, those guys have the playbook down virtually for the entire defense. They know all 11 spots or 10 spots. That's where the youth needs to, having Thomas as a mentor. Hey, it's more than just hitting. I know that shows up on film, but not being aligned properly pre-snap, I'm sure that's where Thomas is bringing a lot of mentorship there.
Oh yeah, he's the quarterback, or really, I guess, the coach of the defense. He gets not just the DBs, but a lot of times linebackers, and probably what people don't realize, even alignment, shifts, motions, and that changes a lot of stuff. Personnel in different spots, and we're checking to different things and making sure we're alerted to things. And he does a great job of seeing the huddle break and seeing kind of where all those pieces go, and processes that quickly. And that's not easy for everybody, but that's probably his biggest strength.
I really liked also watching how you situationally sub. Old crew, and Smith has been he's done some great things in the run game, and oftentimes you don't see all that show up statistically in the tackles or whatever. But man, on film, he is there. Running back changes route.
Yep.
There's your guy. I mean, just the defense Matt Bryant seems to have this defense really cooking right now.
Yeah, and part of that is coaches getting guys in spots to play to their strengths. Mason Smith is really good, probably closer to the ball, setting an edge. He's got long arms. He's hard to block because of that, and he can force everything back into pursuit. And so he might not make a tackle, but he's making the play because he's forced everything back into the pursuit.
Yeah, seen that many times this year.
And dropping underneath stuff, he's long. So even though
window closer. Yeah.
It's tough to get a pass over a 6'4" guy with his hand up in the air as opposed to a 5'10" guy. It's a game of inches, and he's got some inches on his reach that provide us with kind of a luxury there.
You have talked about Mason Smith since we've been doing this. I mean, he's always a guy you can go to in those situations. He makes plays. He's just every day. He's always healthy. Coaches talk about availability. Where Tyler Roars, unfortunately, is not available to us. He seems to be durable, likes to tackle. I mean, he brings a lot of unique characteristics to the field he's on it, and he makes maybe not a lot of tackles, maybe not a lot of interceptions, but boy, he makes a lot of plays.
Right, and JT's kind of the opposite. He's
Exactly.
better in the back end.
Exactly.
Now he has shown that he's played up close and made some good aggressive plays for us, but he's good with ball skills. And he's quick enough where if you've got a smaller, quicker slot receiver, he can cover that. And then he played 3 years at corner, so if we had to make a switch, like a matchup switch, where we got a bigger guy in the slot and a smaller guy outside, he could make that switch right now and play that. So we like those pieces and the versatility we have. We're still working through and emerging on that stuff, and those guys are getting better and better.
So, we're having coaches come in to do our podcast, and we get to ask some deeper questions because we're all fans too. When we're up there, we think we know the base defenses and what you're doing, but there's so much more to the game. Having Nick Miller come in and talk about nuances that our fan base doesn't quite appreciate about the offensive line. We're going to try to get Ryan Miller and going to try to get Matt Bryant in the next few podcasts to talk about the sniper position. We hear it. It sounds cool. They're doing all kinds of cool things in space. There they are. There's their alignment. Maybe give 30 seconds to the idea of what this whole sniper construct is, because it does look kind of corner, does look kind of safety, kind of looks like outside linebackers sometimes. And I think it takes a lot of skills to play that spot.
Yeah, there's it's kind of a spot where you're almost a hybrid.
Yeah.
And we've had in the years past we've subbed guys like a Brooks Bainfelt was a big strong kid. You know, if they've got a tight end H back, you're up there playing the run. Was good enough to play, the pass a little bit.
He was a bad dude.
Yeah.
He was a bad
and
dude.
then we at that time Thomas was a sophomore and more of a passing situation. He would come in and play more of the deeper pass responsibility stuff, but that's a position that they have to adjust based on formation. When there's trips on one side, we're taking snipers and moving over to the other side of the field. Sometimes they're playing up in the box, from tight end to tight end. Sometimes they're out in space. Sometimes they're playing a deep, quarter of the field. So
Yeah.
they're probably playing more space than anybody because they could be on the left side, they could be on the right side, they could be playing deep, they could be playing short. They might have a deep route in a coverage, they might have flats in a coverage. And it's just, we ask a lot out of them, and they've got to have a certain skill set, and they've got to have a knowledge of, I don't just stand over here and when the huddle breaks and I stay there. They're constantly moving, and we're getting on them about don't go to one side, stay in the middle, see what the formation is, see where the personnel is, and then adjust from there.
Pre-snap and alignments are just talking to Matt Bryan a little bit, saying, Scott, you see all these plays and tackles, interceptions, but it all really starts on the pre-snap reads, proper alignments, and that film study. A lot of these kids are on that huddle film, and you really preach that. These 4 and 5 wide route combinations can be really difficult. We didn't face that in the 90s when you were playing. It was pretty vanilla. This is not vanilla offenses we're going against.
And with today's passing game and the advent of the spread offense, the formations are endless. The personnel packages can be a lot. And then that you have certain coverage beaters. If they know you're in a cover 3, okay, we're going to run our cover 3 beaters. And those are concepts that cover 3 struggles to stop. We're going to run the corner off, we're going to occupy the safety, and we're going to find this hole right here between, the flat defender and the curl player. You got cover 2 beaters, you got man beaters. So we feel like you got to have answers. You can't just sit in one coverage all the time. You can't sit in one front all the time because, a lot of teams are going up there and they're just reading what you're lined up in, and then the coaches are yelling out, what play to run. And so it's really evolved, and you've got to be multiple, and you've got to be good at everything you do. And well, I used to joke, in the old days, you used to be able to hide a player. Go stand out there or go play deep. You can't hide guys today because teams attack the field from sideline to sideline and from end zone to end zone, and it's hard to. You've got to have 11 guys out there that know what's going on.
Well, that sniper position certainly has a lot of responsibilities and a lot of skills and athleticism. So when you see snipers playing, these are kids that can do a lot of different things against a lot of innovative offenses. Okay, very good. Swanton was the first league win. Liberty Center is a 4-win team. We are not undefeated. Okay, Mark Bly and I have been talking about. He reminds me all the time. Now, don't say that to Coach Moeller because he does not a buyer into undefeated. It is a 4-win team, and that is good to start the season out with a victory. We're 4-0. We head into Bryan, another traditional power that has fallen on hard times. The numbers haven't been there for that program. Again, when we played and when you played and when your dad played, Bryan was a monster. And you see a team 30, 40, 50, 60 years of a 100-year league, and they were good for 90 of them. But the last decade, it's been rough. Again, and you've talked about it, and this is someday we'll have a bigger discussion about how can we get football better. We need Swanton and Wauseon and Bryan. We need those teams to be great again, to make this every Friday. Not that we're taking Bryan for granted, but they've fallen on hard times. This team isn't what it was just a decade ago, 20 years ago, but they do present some interesting threats. Bryan is not going to lay down for Liberty Center, and I think there's always an edge when a team comes in and you're homecoming. I think there's a little bit of a, like, why am I homecoming? Well, there's a reason why. We're not scheduling Marion Local on homecoming. So, but your preview of Bryan, when you look at Bryan just initially for our fan base, what are you seeing out of Bryan?
Well, very athletic.
For sure.
Good athletes. Not super big up front, but they're athletic. And sometimes I've said that in the past, that an athletic lineman is more dangerous than a big, strong lineman.
Otsego.
Yeah. Those guys can move and get to level 2 and level 3. In the screen game, they can get out on the perimeter. And Bryan has a really good screen game. They throw the ball down the field. They RPO.
Yep.
So they're going to run the ball and set up some
run,
RPOs.
pass, option. Run, pass, option. That's pretty vernacular for these guys, pretty common. But our fan base, they can run it, throw it, and they've got options on it. Basically.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the 70s, wishbone was an option attack. The 2000s, nobody's running wishbone, they're running RPOs where the quarterback is fake, gonna hand it off, but if he sees a coverage that he likes, he can pull the ball out and throw a quick slant or a pop pass to the tight end or something like that. And so if you get over aggressive and your linebackers are coming downhill to tackle the run, now all of a sudden you've opened up a big window for the quarterback and the receiver to throw to. And they do a good job of that. Their coaches know what they're looking for. They can manipulate by formation kind of what look they want and where they want to attack. So those are all things that Brian can do. And they're young, which means they're going to get better and better every week.
So you haven't seen their best. I mean, they're going to continue
no,
to.
I mean, the way they look week one, when you got a lot of sophomores and juniors, your week one performance is not the same as your week 5. Those kids are going to get way better. If you got a lot of seniors, your week 1 and week 5, you're probably not getting as much growth. You're always going to get growth, but not as much. When you got young guys, they're going to grow more. So.
Well, when I looked at Brian like you did, and you took just the opening look, you just see the versatility in the quarterback room. They got a guy that can throw it. They got a guy that can RPO run it. Yep. So, that you've got to prepare. And I think that people don't have a full appreciation for one entire style you're preparing for. Then here comes a dude that can sit there and pick you apart. Brian has a couple of pretty good quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I think they like them both, and they have a little bit different size, a little bit different body type, and one likes to get out on the edge and be an athlete. One likes to sling the ball around a little bit more than the other, but both of them can do both. They just have different strengths, and like I said, they've got athletes that can play in space, and that's what they do. They spread you out, get you in space, and hope to make plays.
Well, certainly, Brian is a threat. They've got great, a nostalgic program. They got very good athletes. They got quarterbacks that can threaten. And, sometimes, homecoming, the players sometimes start thinking about homecoming, and they start thinking about the different activities of the weekend. I remember Rex would say, enjoy this, have a great weekend, and do all those things, and we always did, but he was very focused to not lose focus. Well, and what things are you doing to make sure we're focused on something like this? Because you don't need a surprise against Brian.
The last few years, last several years, we've really harped on we got to stay focused because homecoming week is a lot of distractions.
It's all week. It's all week.
It's photos. It's getting ready for the dance and what are you wearing? Who are you taking? I got to do this elaborate ask somebody to homecoming, which I think is ridiculous.
HOCO or whatever. I do too.
And,
what in the world is that?
But our guys, if you ask them who you taking to homecoming, they're going to say Brian. We've trained them to stay focused on the game, and then
kind of like that.
Game day is there's a lot of stuff going on at school. There's a pep assembly. We're doing a scavenger hunt. We're doing all these things. So it's a little bit of a different routine than what they're accustomed to. You're not in class all day. You've got this, a lot of hoopla and stuff going around. So we need to stay focused on the game. And it's kind of a double-edged sword because a lot of distractions, but at the same time, homecoming is football. You look, homecoming was invented at a football game, yeah. and we embrace that, and we know the tradition and things like that, and so we want to play it.
Well, distractions are wide ranging. Liberty Center comes out, I think, as the number 1 team in Division 5 this week. A lot of people looking at the more you win, the more headlines, the more conversation, and you guys have to tamp some of that down to stay focused week to week. And this is certainly homecoming week. Internally is a lot, but externally, here comes some of the things that you got to stay mindful of and control of.
Yeah, I addressed the AP poll and said, they've got us number 1. I told them we are not the number 1 team in the state.
What have we done? We have not. Yeah. We've not done that yet. That's for the future. That's for the 4-win team. Coach Moeller, discipline on the messaging this week. Homecoming, Liberty Center. A great traditional NWOAL power comes in to Liberty Center, to Rex Lindgren Stadium, Kip Kern Field for a festive homecoming weekend. And Coach Moeller, we're looking for win 5, and hate to wish you luck, but have a great week of practice and a great homecoming week.
Thank you.